Hello, this is the second part of the video series on how to create a Unity third-person controller. In the previous video, we've learned to create the camera and the camera movement and some functionalities like camera collision. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about camera movement and we're going to set up a movement system and gravity for our player. So let's go ahead and go to the script. And we need some settings here. Let's create a header for it. And we need two variables to start with, move speed and rotate speed. Let's also go ahead and create a region for our movement. I'm going to collapse the camera region. As you can see, by doing regions, separating the different parts of your code, you can have a clean script. Now let's go ahead and create our movement region here. And to start, of course, we need a reference to our character controller. And now let's create a method to initialize the movement. In the initialize movement, we're going to get the character controller. We could also add another functionality and check if the character controller is null. We could just add the character controller. This way, even if you forget to attach the character controller to your player, it's just going to be created automatically for you. So let's go ahead and find our awake function and say initialize movement. And next thing we need to do, we need to create another method here. This is going to be update movement, and another method we're going to call ground check. The ground check is to check if the player is on the ground or not. Let's go ahead and call these functions in the update method. First, we're going to call ground check before everything, and here we're going to call update movement. So to do the movement, we need to get some input. Let's actually get the input here. So as you know, in Unity, the default values for movement keys are horizontal and vertical, and you could use input get access by getting. We're going to create a vector3 called input direction, and we're going to get the direction of our input. Let's actually create a boolean here. And using this, we could check if our character currently is moving or not. And we can do that by checking if the input direction, that magnitude, is bigger or equals to 0.1. If the player is moving, then we need to move the player and also rotate the player into the direction of movement. So we're going to create a move input. We're going to use camera snap forward multiplied by input direction Z, and camera snap right normalized multiplied by input direction X. And one more thing we're going to do, we're going to set the Y value of our move input to 0. And now we could easily use the controller to move our player. So by multiplying move input into move speed and time delta time, we could just easily move our controller. Now we could also rotate the player towards the direction of move input. To do that, we're going to rotate the transform. So we're going to rotate our transform.rotation from transform.rotation to the lock rotation of our input, and by rotate speed multiplied by time.delta time. So let's go ahead and check out the results. As you can see, I can move around the player, even move up these stairs, but if you notice, I'm not going to fall down because we haven't implemented the gravity yet. And to get a better concept of the player, let's create a small cube, scale this a little bit, and move it here to show the player forward, where the player is looking. And let's play again. And as you can see, I can move around the player and it's going to rotate toward the input direction. Now let's go ahead and implement some gravity. To do this, I'm just going to define a variable here. I'm going to name this gravity. And let's go back to our update movement, and here we're going to set the velocity for our controller. But to do that, we also need another variable here called velocity. It's going to be a vector 3. So let's go back to our update, and we're going to change the y-axis of our velocity. We're going to reduce the gravity from this value, and we could easily move the controller, and we're going to use velocity to control the falling down and make sure the character is always going to get grounded. Now let's go and check it again. As you can see, it's going to fall down. But you might have noticed that it's going to fall down almost immediately. Let's check this out. And let's pause this, give it a 100 for the height, and resume it, and it's going to snap on the ground almost immediately. We need to fix this. We need to make sure it's going to fall down smoothly, not immediately. So to do that, we need to do a ground check first. And to do the ground check, we need some variables. So to visualize these variables, let's actually go ahead and create undraw gizmos. As you know, undraw gizmos is a built-in function. But let's change this to ground check offset. Now this code is going to visualize our ground check raycast line. And let's go ahead to our scene. choose the player. Let's hide the mesh. As you can see, that's the red line here is going to be the position of our ray that is going to check for the ground. Let's move up the player a little bit. Okay, and now let's play with these values. I'm gonna move this down a little bit. As you can see, by moving the offset, the red line is going to move around. Let's zoom in a little bit. I think this is a good place. And let's also check this, change the distance. Make sure it's something like this. Half of the line is above the player base and half of it is below. You can also increase the distance to make sure it doesn't give us a false value when we're moving up the stairs or something. I'm gonna enable the mesh renderer again. And also make sure to set the ground layers to everything but player. Everything except the player. Now let's go back to our code and actually write the ground check. To do that, first we need to define a grounded variable. It's going to be a Boolean variable. And let's go to our ground check here. So the origin of our ray is going to be transform position and move up a little bit as offset, and the direction is going to be vector 3 down. We're going to cast a ray, and the distance is going to be ground check distance, and the layers is going to be ground layers, and that's gonna determine the value of grounded. So let's go back to our update movement, and right over here we're going to check if it's grounded or not. And we're also going to check if the velocity y value is less than 0. If it is, we're just going to set the velocity y value to something like -1. So let's go ahead and play the game. As you can see, when I go up somewhere and jump down, it's going to jump down slowly. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to implement jumping in our game. I'm also going to set 2 different modes for our camera. One mode is like the RPG games, when you can move around camera freely, and the other one is like the Minecraft game, when you move the camera, player rotates with the camera as well. So if you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up and please subscribe to support me and encourage me to make more videos. If you had any questions, ask me in the comments or send me an email. Thank you for watching.